And staying in the United States, President Donald Trump has declared that drug cartels are unlawful combatants and that America is now engaged in an armed conflict with them. In a memo accessed by the Associated Press news agency and the New York Times, it follows a series of deadly U.S. military strikes on boats in the Caribbean that the administration said were smuggling narcotics, sparking alarm among lawmakers and legal experts. The confidential notice, on the other hand, represents a remarkable assertion of presidential war powers, one that shifts a decades-old war on drugs from metaphor into a literal state of conflict. The memo, citing the law of armed conflict, states that drug trafficking into the United States constitutes an armed attack and requires military force and self-defense. President Trump directed the Pentagon to conduct operations against them pursuant to the law of armed conflict.
The president determined that the United States is in a non-international armed conflict with these designated terrorist organizations. The United States has now reached a critical point where we must use force in self-defense and defense of others against the ongoing attacks by these designated terrorist organizations.
Already at least 3 strikes were carried out last month on suspected drug boats, 2 of them reportedly originating from Venezuela. U.S. officials say all 17 people on board were killed and the vessels destroyed along with their cargo. A September 15 strike in particular, which killed 3 suspected smugglers, was cited in the memo as justification for the president's determination that these cartels are non-state armed groups waging attacks on the United States.
Based upon the cumulative effects of these hostile acts against the citizens and interests of the United States and friendly foreign nations, the president determined that the United States is in a non-international armed conflict with these designated terrorist organizations.
The White House, however, insists the operations are both lawful and necessary. In fact, President Trump himself defended the policy before military leaders, saying each boat carried enough drugs to kill 25,000 people.
Drug cartels, as far as foreign terrorist organizations, along with 2 bloodthirsty transnational gangs, probably the worst gangs anywhere in the world, MS-13 and Tren de Aragua. Tren de Aragua is from Venezuela, by the way. Such organizations torture, maim, mutilate, and murder with impunity. They're the enemies of all humanity. And for this reason, we've recently begun using the supreme power of the United States military to destroy Venezuelan terrorists and trafficking networks led by Nicolas, Maduro. To every terrorist thug smuggling poisonous drugs into the United States of America, please be warned that we will blow you out of existence. That's what we're doing. We have no choice. Can't let it happen. They're destroying. I believe we lost 300,000 people last year to drugs, 300,000. Fentanyl and other drugs. Each boat that we sink carries drugs that would kill more than 25,000 Americans.
Now, the extraordinary declaration has triggered a storm of criticism. Senator Jack Reed, the top Democrat on the Senate Armed Services Committee, accused President Trump of waging secret wars against anyone he labels an enemy without presenting credible evidence or seeking congressional approval.
Drug cartels are despicable and must be dealt with by law enforcement. But the U.S. military is now engaged in armed conflict with undefined enemies the president has unilaterally labeled unlawful combatants.
But for now, the Trump administration is standing firm, portraying the fight against cartels as a non-international armed conflict with terrorist organizations across the hemisphere. And the president is taking the unchecked powers granted by the Supreme Court to new heights. And now the region is bracing and in some cases trembling, watching to see just how far Donald Trump is prepared to take his new war.
Firstpost now available in 9 languages on YouTube. English,
$36 trillion.
French,
Le FMI, comme
German,
geschäftsführenden Direktoren,
Hindi,
$36 trillion का कर्ज है.
Indonesian,
Pemerintah tanpa pemeriksaan.
Italian,
Sekali radikali.
Japanese, Portuguese,
Por causa do próprio balanço patrimonial.
Spanish.
Beautiful bill.
Go to Settings, click on Audio Track and select the language of your choice. Be the first to know what's happening around you in your first language. Firstpost.